Hi, and welcome back to the Save It for Parts channel, where today I'm trying to reorganize this little corner of the garage to be less of a giant explosion of junk and be, well, it's still going to be a giant pile of junk, but I'm hoping it'll be a little more useful. This whole sort of zone of the garage, this back corner, is already where all my satellite stuff lives, or a lot of my satellite stuff, but it's also where RC stuff lives, and forgotten projects, and random things and outboards that I may or may not ever get around to rebuilding. And there's a lot of stuff back here, and it's not super useful. It's just kind of a graveyard where forgotten projects go to die, or projects that I don't have time for go back to fossilize while I wait to have time to do them. So yeah, I think what I'm going to do is clear some of this out, and we're going to try to convert this into more of a ham radio, satellite, electronics work area. Now, I'm lucky enough to have a big enough garage, once I've cleaned out some of the junk, to have a more dedicated electronics work area, and I'm hoping to up my game with soldering, with printed circuit boards, with basic electronics in general. Now, if you don't have a lot of space or tools to do electronic stuff, you could get some help from the sponsor of today's video, PCB Way. In addition to fabricating custom printed circuit boards, PCB Way can do a whole bunch of other electronics things, from fabrication, assembly, design assistance, and all kinds of rapid prototyping stuff, from laser cutting, 3D printing, CNC manufacturing, sheet metal manufacturing. So you can basically build an entire electronics device or prototype from the ground up, all the way from the design up to the enclosure to the electronics assembly, and have it shipped to your door really quickly. I've showed some examples of custom printed circuit boards in the past, things like custom game cartridges or computer components, and I have a few ideas for projects like that in the future where PCBWay could really help out with the fabrication and design. If you've watched this channel very long, you know that I struggle with a lot of DIY tools, things like 3D printers. I just never have a lot of luck with. So if you've been like me and have an older 3D printer, or don't have a 3D printer at all and need something built quickly and professionally, PCBWay can support that. Once I have this electronics work area set up, and once I've got a little more practice with soldering, maybe a better soldering iron, then I think PCBWay is going to be a good resource for some of the designs that I have in mind. They also have an online community of designs that other people have made, and there's some really interesting stuff in there. Things that not only could I use myself, could I get printed by PCBWay and get shipped right to me, but also some inspiration for other projects that I might want to do in the future. So thank you again to PCBWay for sponsoring this video, and I will put links to them down in the description if you'd like to check out all their products and services, or you can click the PCBWay link up here in the corner. Having an actual ham radio shack or work area has been kind of an ongoing problem for me. Right now, all of my satellite work at the house happens in between the drill press and the laser cutter, nestled underneath the WD-40. So this is not an ideal spot for a laptop, and all of the cables and wires run out this little window up to the roof of the garage where some of the antennas are, and it gets covered in sawdust, things fall on it. It's not a great work area. And most of my better ham radio gear has just lived in this box for 10 years, waiting for me to pull it out and do something with it. Plus, I have all this test equipment that some people have given me recently, which I'd really like to set up somewhere. I absolutely don't have room in the radio closet, slash server closet, slash 3D printer closet, slash general junk storage. There's no room in here. And then there's this pile of shame, which actually does include some more radio gear. I got an antenna recently and a repeater, some GMRS stuff. So I would love to have space to actually branch out, spread out, get this stuff figured out and do stuff with it. When it comes to actual antennas, I do have quite a bit of space at the moment because I have not yet filled up the top of the garage. So we've got a couple little tracking satellite dishes for L-band and S-band weather satellites. I have the big guy here for the Goes East weather satellite, the 137 megahertz satellite antenna, this two-way dish that I don't actually use that at the moment. I should figure out a use for that thing. And this big old UHF antenna, which several people have offered to buy. In fact, people have asked if I can ship this over to Europe for them. And no, I'm using this one, so I'm sorry guys, I'm gonna keep using it. Anyway, I'd like somewhere to put the actual radios more permanently, somewhere that I don't have to just operate with a Baofeng out of a shoebox if and when I want to get on the air, which I'm not very good at. I don't get on the air as a ham very often. I do have an amateur radio license. I just almost never use it because I don't have somewhere to sit and talk on the radio, and usually I'm too busy doing satellite stuff to actually sit and talk on the radio, but it would be nice to have a work area for both of those things. So first off, I need to organize all of this junk that's in the corner. We've got RC stuff, we've got Axeman surplus stuff, we've got military surplus stuff, there are some actual ham radio parts over here. birdhouses, airplane parts, just, you know, all kinds of junk. And yeah, like I said, this is kind of where stuff goes when I don't know what to do with it right away. And it just sits and clutters up this corner. Yeah, even I forgot I had a rock tumbler. I got to work on that at some point. We have a centrifuge down there. We've got train wheels. That briefcase is actually a radio thing. And then, yeah, tons of satellite dish parts that are just kind of left over that I need to work on as well. And this shelf is also satellite dish parts and radio stuff. And this kind of needs a home as well, because I'd like to open up, I'd kind of like to both close off this corner and open up more of the middle of the garage if possible. All right, let's see if we can scooch this entire cabinet around to here. Oh. Okay, good to know. The countertop is not actually attached to the cabinets. It's just sitting there. All of the stuff that I moved out of the cabinet and just put over here to get out of the way is now in the way because I need more stuff to come out and the bigger pieces to come out. So yeah, this is turning into just, I know I'll never get these hinges back on in the right place. I need to clear a path through here so I can get some stuff in and out. And I think my hoarding problem is really starting to interfere with my hoarding problem. I'm really starting to wonder if I should keep this thing at all. This thing is just crumbling apart as I move it. Like, this whole corner has collapsed, the front has cracked. I'm never gonna get this square again so that the drawers open. So I think this is the point where we're gonna throw this thing away or burn it, or I'm gonna do something with this, but yeah, I think this is gonna go. I don't know why I thought this was worth keeping. Every time I touch it, another piece falls off. As usual, whenever I have the garage door open, here comes one of the neighborhood cats to investigate the operation. Hi, you gonna get lost in there? You just, okay. This is why I have a one-way cat door on the garage where they can get out, because they love to come in here and just hide under everything. All right, so all of this stuff is now essentially homeless. Yeah, so that's kind of a problem. So now I can't even use my workbench at all. So this has absolutely made things worse. But on the plus side, we have this empty corner. So this is the first time I've seen this corner for over a decade. And yeah, it's pretty exciting to have some space over here. Of course, I now have to tear up my intricate plan of what to do with that corner because it relied on having the cabinet here. So yeah, we're gonna have to redo this plan. But one thing I am still doing is putting this desk in that corner. I picked this up on Facebook Marketplace for free, and it's a lot nicer than that old cabinet I pulled out. Now that the cabinet's gone, this desk seems pretty small, actually. All right, it's a new day, and I've got some new plans for how this should look. After hoarding scrap wood in the garage for over a decade, I've actually started to run out of usable lumber. So I went down to the hardware store and spent a few hours trying to find a 2x4 that was straight. Managed to buy 4 pieces of wood for a very reasonable price. Okay, I did get a couple other things like some shop lights. All right, I think the project corner is essentially done for now. It's probably never going to be actually done, but it's at a good stopping point, and I think it's ready to actually use it. So this desk on the right is kind of the traditional ham radio and SDR work area. So I've got my laptop over here, I've got my SDR, and I've got a few radios. I'm probably going to add some here, change things around. I've got some other radio stuff down in the basement that I want to bring out here. Some of this stuff isn't hooked up yet. I don't actually remember what this is. I gotta look up how to use an antenna tuner from World War II. But we've also got some parts and accessories up here. I've got a bunch of antennas. I've got feeds for the Discovery dish. I've got spare wires, spare cables, basically a bunch of parts and stuff to work on. One example of a project I'll be setting up shortly is the Boondock Echo, which I've shown in some prior videos. This is basically a radio answering machine. So once I have the antenna moved over, I can have the Boondock hooked up to my little Baofeng here, and that will basically record incoming radio transmissions. So if I have that listening to some ham channels or a local repeater, it will record radio traffic, and then I can play that back either from the device here or over the internet. And I can even set up keyword alerts like my call sign. So if somebody tries to reach me and I'm not physically in the ham shack, I'll still get the message. I've got some terminals and shrink wrap and whatnot, and then my soldering iron. And yes, this is still the old clunky soldering iron that's not very good. A couple people offered me better ones, so we'll see if any of those show up. In the meantime, I've used one of those holes I drilled in the wall for a ventilation system. So I've got a little air blower back here, and then I've got this tube that I can kind of clamp over my work area and yeah, basically exhaust the fumes from soldering, so I'm not just breathing in lead fumes, because the leadless solder never works very well. Moving over to the left here, we have this big empty workbench, which is kind of a crazy thing to have in my life, is an empty workbench that's not just covered in junk. But this is going to be kind of the electronics work area, project area, soldering area. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to playing around with this now that I have a little more space. We've got some cork boards up above so I can organize things. Got a few things on there already. Got that power bar in the back. We have the lights that I put in. Just turn those on, and I think the sync rate on the lights is not going to cooperate with the camera, so maybe I'll turn those off again. Down below, I have a bunch of stuff organized into these clear bins, so I can kind of see what there is in those. We've got electric stuff, relays, projects, compressed air stuff. We've got some drone parts. Always an important bin, the junk miscellaneous bin. Capacitors, maybe I'll make some kind of a coil gun eventually. We have some satellite feeds. I've got some old scientific equipment back in there. I don't quite know what to do with that yet. And then moving up, we have oscilloscopes and meters and things. A very frequent comment in my videos when I do electronics projects and I don't know what I'm doing, people say, just scope it. Just scope it, as if that is a phrase that means anything to me. That means nothing to me. I don't know how to use any of these. So that might be another video where I figure out, what is an oscilloscope? What do I do with an oscilloscope? How do I use any of these fancy gadgets that are up here? You'll have to stay tuned for that. If you don't know what an oscilloscope is or how to use it, well, you can learn right along with me. I do have some power supplies over here and a frequency counter. I know a little bit more about how to use those. I've got this really cool thing that somebody gave me at my recent swap meet. It's a recording voltmeter. So I can not only measure volts, and I can also put it out on a little graph paper. That's pretty neat. Some more old radio stuff, some enclosures, some solar stuff. And then up at the top here, we have my collection of little miniature satellite dishes. So I've got the various tailgaters and the wine guard dishes. I've got this one that I put the 3D printed helicone on. And this is not all of them. I still have a lot of stuff over here. So this shelf is still being organized, and then I might end up with another shelf in here with some of this stuff. So I'm still trying to figure out where do some of these things go. And I've got a few more bins of things over here. So it's not completely finished. Like I said, this will never quite be done, but it's getting closer to done. And Yes, it is a little weird to have the outboards right next to the electronics workstation. So yes, there are still some things to do here. I need to run antennas through those holes in the wall. I need to put antennas up on the roof. It is still winter. Everything is coated in ice right now. We just had a bunch of freezing rain, so I will not be running around on the roof. I will not be putting in antennas anytime soon. That will probably happen in the spring, but I wanted to kind of wrap up the video at a good stopping point here and show you what things look like. And then you'll see this space again as I add to it, as I move things around, as I figure out which of these things I know how to use, which ones have problems. Some of these may come and go. I might change this a little bit. I might do some more stuff up here. We might hang some stuff from the ceiling. So there are a lot of small changes that could happen. I think the big changes are pretty well set though. I have this workspace kind of figured out the way I want it, and I'm pretty happy with it right now. And the rest of the garage is not looking too bad. I've got this area mostly picked up. I had this giant pile here earlier that you saw, so that is pretty cleaned out. So I still have most of my workbench over here for general projects. Still have, I gotta figure out what I'm doing over here. I've got lots of junk on that other workbench. And I did get the airboat mostly dug out. So this used to have quite a bit of trash on top of it. And now you can see there's an airboat here. We might still do something with that this year. All right, I'm starting to ramble here, so I think it's time to wrap this video up. Thank you again to PCB Way for the sponsorship, and you can check them out in the description down below if you need any printed circuit boards made. Thank you also to my Patreon supporters who really help with my lumber budget, because I ended up having to build a lot more furniture, a lot more shelving than I expected to. When I started this, I was just going to reuse some of the old rotten furniture that was in here, that old rotten cupboard, and that did not work at all. So lumber is very expensive these days, so Patreon and YouTube membership goes a long way towards helping improve my workspace, towards helping improve the channel, and supporting future interesting projects that can happen in this space now. If you'd like to help support the channel, I will put links to Patreon down in the description below. Finally, thank you to everyone out there for watching, and we'll see you next time.